This is a video notes. We're going to go with guided notes, adding and subtracting polynomials. So in our notes, the first part, we're just going to review some vocabulary words that we will be using throughout this entire unit. The first one is monomial. Okay, monomial is any combination of variables or numbers multiplied together. Now, in the past, your teachers a lot of times just use the word term. Okay, and over here, I've given you some basic examples. Okay, those numbers that you learned in elementary school, that's a monomial. Okay, just any variable is a monomial. Two variables multiplied together. Okay, because remember, it's any combination of variables or numbers multiplied, like negative 6a. It can even contain fractions and exponents. Exponents, sometimes people question, but exponent is a shortcut way to show repetitive multiplication. Okay, now the new word that we're going to pick up here is polynomial. Okay, polynomial is any combinations of monomials that are added or subtracted together. Okay, so they're any expression such as these that each term or monomial, remember terms is another word for it, is added or subtracted. Okay, now the next two terms, binomial and trinomial, those are going to be words we use a lot in this unit. A binomial means two monomials or two terms being added or subtracted together. Of course, bi meaning two. Trinomial is the same thing as a polynomial that contains three terms that are separated with addition or subtraction signs. Okay, tri, of course, meaning three. Now, the last vocabulary word we have used before, and it's called like terms. Now, in the past, you were taught that like terms would have the same variable. But as we move higher in math, we have to expand that to say not only the same variable, but the same exponent. Okay, so actually those numbers in elementary school that you used, they are like terms. This is what you started seeing in 6th and 7th grade when you were combining variable terms. But now we're going to move into having the exponents also. So just like we have A's and B's here, both A's have to have the same exponent and both B's have to have the same exponent before they're like terms. Okay. Now, what we're going to do today is look at what is considered adding and subtracting polynomials. Well, honestly, all we're really going to be doing is combining like terms. Now, there are several methods to showing your work. What we are going to use is the vertical method. Okay, now just scribble right out here on the side. When you were in elementary school, you were taught you could write something like 4 plus 3, but you could also write it this way, 4 plus 3. This first way I wrote it is considered the horizontal method. This is the vertical method. Okay, this is the method we are going to use. A lot of people prefer this method because it's an easy way to line up those like terms. Remember when we were solving systems, we were doing something like this. You know, we put the line under there and we added vertically to eliminate a variable. We were combining like terms or adding and subtracting vertical method. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing here. Okay, so if I look at my first one right here, your first line or your top line is going to be the first polynomial. Now, the parentheses are simply like for clarification, like Scotch tape holding it all together. Okay, so the parentheses is telling me the 11z and 13 belong together. This set of parentheses tells me the negative 14z and the 6 have to stay together. Okay, like I said, it's like glue or Scotch tape holding them together. So I'm going to write my first polynomial on the first line. This is a plus, and then I'm going to take my second polynomial and I'm going to write it right underneath it. Now notice I'm going to make sure that my like terms are lined up so I can do some vertical combining. Okay. Now, we're going to combine our like terms. So right here, I've got 11z minus 15z, which is negative 4z. Over here, I've got negative 13 plus 6, which is negative 7. So I put minus 7. Right there is my answer. Okay. Now, look at number 2, and let's combine these. Okay, so I'm going to write my first one. 12x squared plus 3x minus 6. Now, let's be careful. This minus sign right here in front of the parenthesis means I have to subtract everything. Okay? Means I've got to subtract the 11x squared and I've got to subtract the 9. I have to subtract everything in the parentheses. Okay? And I'm going to make them subtractions when I rewrite them at the bottom underneath my first polynomial. Okay? So right here, I'm going to subtract the 11x squared. Now I'm going to make sure that I line it up under its like term. I also need to subtract this 9, which means I'm going to line it up right there. Now, some people are comfortable with the problem written that way, but what some people are going to want to do is give it a placeholder right here so that it has 3 terms, okay? Now, I put in a 0x placeholder right there. I wrote it in orange just to emphasize that it is optional, okay? Put the placeholder or not, okay? Now let's combine our like terms. 12x squared minus 11x squared. Well, that's 1x squared, but we know we don't write the 1, so we just put x squared. Right here it'd be like 3 plus 0. So that's 3x. And then be careful right here, that's negative 6 minus 9. Negative 6 minus 9 is negative 15. So I write minus 15. And there is my answer. Okay, and just a reminder, you can pause the video while you copy this down and then hit start and we'll do number 3. All right, problem number 3, right here. I've got to be super careful that I make sure as I'm doing this, I have all my like terms lined up. That's why I picked this one. Let me show you what I'm talking about. I'm going to rewrite my first polynomial, xy cubed plus 2x squared y plus xy. Okay? Now, I'm going to take the second polynomial and I'm going to write it underneath here. But I'm going to make sure I line up my like terms. Okay? So like the 3xy right here is not going to go over here. I'm going to put it over here under this other xy. Okay? My middle term right here, x squared y, well, that matches up with my middle term right here. Now, let me put my little plus sign right there. How do I know that's plus? Because it's plus and that's a positive, okay? Now, I've got to plus this. So I'm going to put the plus x squared y right there. Now, the minus 4xy cubed is going to line up under my first term right over here. Now that minus stays with the 4, so it's negative 4xy cubed, just like that. We'll put my line underneath. Now, some people who are visual are going to want to put placeholders just like that, and that's fine. Put your placeholders. So right here, I've got 1 minus 4, which is negative 3xy cubed. Then I've got 2 plus 1, which is 3x squared y. Then I've got 1 plus 3, which is going to be 4xy. Okay? Final answer. Again, the reason for this one was to make sure that you remember to line up your like terms. Okay, pause and copy, and then we'll do number 4. Okay, now number 4, the reason I picked this example is because we're going to be subtracting a subtraction, subtracting a subtraction, okay? So I'm going to focus on that as we set this problem up. Well, I'm still going to do the first line like always, rewrite it, 17b squared plus 3b minus 7. Now, I got to remember that I'm subtracting everything inside of my parentheses. So the first thing I'm going to do is subtract 22b squared. So I'm going to put right here minus 22b squared. Now, I want you to go back to what you learned in 7th grade with integers. Minus a minus, subtracting a subtraction. It's the same thing as adding, okay? So this is actually going to be plus 3b. Same thing right here. Subtracting that subtraction. That's the same thing as adding 5. Okay? Put my line underneath there and let's combine our like terms. 17b squared minus 22b squared. That's going to be negative 5b squared. 3b plus 3b is going to be 6b. And negative 7 plus 5 is minus or negative 2. And there's my answer. Now, go ahead and finish copying your notes, put these into your interactive notebook, and then work on your assignment.